And thanks for joining us on the news briefing for this Wednesday. We're going to start with the topic of long-term recovery in Pajaro. County staff is beginning the process of creating a long-term recovery task force for this community so that people have questions. What has been happening at this point? What is a timeline for the process, and how can people be involved? We're very pleased to have representatives from our Department of Emergency Management here, Daniel Gonzales, who is going to be working on this project, and Kelsey Scanlon, who is our department director. I'm not sure which of you will start first, so I'll open the floor. Who can tell us what's been happening so far?
Yeah, I'll start and then I'm going to hand it over to Daniel. So at the direction of the Board of Supervisors and the County Administrator, the Monterey County Department of Emergency Management has established a Pajaro Recovery Task Force that is ultimately going to be community-led. We're really trying to create a process and an environment for which the community is actively communicating with the county their priorities and long-term vision for not just the more immediate recovery efforts, but more of the long-term recovery that ultimately we're hoping results in long-term resilience of the community of Pajaro. And really taking lessons learned from recovery efforts in previous floods in the community and either building upon them or creating a better recovery planning effort. And so with that, I will actually defer to Daniel Gonzales to talk about the steering committee, specifically how the community can engage with the recovery task force and the estimated timeline for when a draft long-term recovery plan can be presented to the community and to the Board of Supervisors based on community input and a very extensive and exhaustive planning effort.
Thank you, Daniel. Can you take over from Kelsey?
Yes, will do. Good afternoon, everybody. Daniel Gonzales here with Monterey County Department of Emergency Management. As Kelsey indicated, we have been working to create a steering committee and subcommittees for the long-term Pajaro recovery plan that we're working to develop. We are currently engaging we are at the beginning stages of developing the committees. We are reaching out to the stakeholders in the community. We have begun also contacting residents that have manifested their willingness and their availability to participate as part of these subcommittees. As you all know, we presented the previous week at the Board of Supervisors where we delineated the plan and how we're going to move forward. We currently have 6 subcommittees in different areas that we're going to be populating with residents. We're going to be populating with CBOs and stakeholders that will begin. Hopefully, the intent is to begin meeting and begin these discussion sessions at the end of August, early September, so that we can start coming up with strategies, projects, short, mid, and long-term projects for the community of Pajaro. As Kelsey indicated, we're trying to make this community-led, and so we really want the residents to be a key part in the discussions. We're coming up at this point with other strategies to move forward with a community communication session that we can start, communicating to all the residents, all the work that has been happening and that's been occurring throughout these processes. We're also going to be providing monthly reports to the Board of Supervisors to provide updates as to how the work is going and how the discussions are flowing. I think it's really important to differentiate between the meetings that we're having. I think there was some confusion as to whether they were considered public meetings. At this point, the meetings that we're having with residents are not meant to be full public meetings in terms of communicating. We're contacting residents that were very interested in participating in these efforts throughout the different listening sessions that we had with the county. But we are working on a mechanism to engage the rest of the community and inform them of all the work that's been happening. Also, through the CBOs and their constituents base, we're going to be informing of the work that is happening so that this process becomes open and transparent and also involves the residents.
So if people have questions for Kelsey or Daniel, go ahead and put them in the chat now. Daniel, I'd like to ask you, you're meeting almost like one-on-one with residents. If someone just was at one of those listening sessions but didn't say, hey, I want to be involved, what should they do?
They can reach out here to the office. I am the community liaison, so if they have any questions, they can contact me about the process, and I will very gladly respond to any questions they may have. I see some of the questions already coming on the chat. Do you want to address them, Amaya?
Yeah, that way we're posting this later so everyone can hear the question. So the question for you, you said a certain number of people have been contacted so far. How many people are you talking about?
So we've reached out to around 20 residents that manifested during the listening session. We requested that people sign in and provide contact sheets if they wanted to be contacted for future engagement. And so that's the group that we've been reaching out to. We are looking to extend that group. We're going to be requesting some also participation from CBOs to designate some of their residents from the people that they are working with to these groups so that we can include, we're looking to have 3 to 5 residents on each one of the committees so that we can have a good, section of residents in these groups providing feedback and providing information to the committees.
Thank you. And Daniel, I had a little audio problem at the very beginning when Kelsey was talking, but the formation of the committees, you said you wanted to have 3 to 5 residents per committee.
Correct.
It sounds like there will be other people on those committees as well. So residents are coming in as being subject matters experts in their field, correct?
In their field, correct. As part of the situation that they faced, definitely they are considered experts in that realm. We are going to be also having county agencies as part of the committees, community-based organizations that have been working specifically on these targeted areas. So it's going to be a trifecta of residents, county, and CBOs working together to come up with project strategies in which we can move forward in the short, mid, and long-term range.
Thank you. Victor, you've got your hand up. Do you want to just ask?
Yeah, sure. Instead of using the text, it sounds like this is probably easier. Daniel, Victor Guzman, K-Ivan. I was wondering, I think you mentioned something, and I may have misheard about the meetings when they get started, they're not going to be public, or is that just the whole process to select them, that those won't be public?
Hi. Okay, so there's a multi-pronged approach for communicating with the public. We would like to have very meaningful conversations and focused conversations with a limited pool of residents and business owners from the community of Pajaro. However, we don't want to exclude the overall voice of the community, and we also want to continue to engage and build a relationship with the community that's not in the middle of a disaster. So having said that, the steering committee and its and the subcommittee task force, sorry, I wish I had an org chart in front of me, are going to be a limited number of community residents that have expressed interest. However, there will be opportunity in the future for more listening sessions with the whole community to continue to gather input and to provide updates on the overall recovery task force efforts. Did that answer the question?
Victor.
Sorry, yeah, that was fine. And I can't remember what the number was for how many people were contacted so far specifically.
About 20.
About 20, okay.
Yeah, and we're looking to extend that number to close to 30.
I think it's important to note that while that the group of citizens, or sorry, the group of community members that will be participating in the task force is limited, we have continued to engage with the entirety of the Pajaro community. I'm not sure if Daniel mentioned it already, but we have been going door to door to get input from the community on what their biggest needs are, what their biggest priorities are, what they would like to see in their community in the next 5, 10, 20 years. So there are ample opportunities for the community to continue to participate.
Yeah, as Kelsey mentioned, we currently have a group of VITA workers and health department staff that are going door to door, talking to residents. They're doing a survey of needs, a needs assessment, if you will, of the situation they're currently facing and what the priorities are for them. So that's another way that we are trying to gather this information so that we have a clearer view of what the community needs are.
You also talked about short, mid, and long-term projects. When you're talking about projects, what do you mean? Maybe fleshing out a little bit, what would a project be?
A project would be looking at potential areas that when we talk about short-term, we're talking about projects that wouldn't take over a year or between a year or so in terms of completion, so that residents can see that there's work moving, that there's work happening in the area. And they don't, a lot of the times when we focus on, we already know what the long-term goals are, what the long-term objectives are, right? But that takes some time for the residents to be able to see how that happens and how that comes to fruition. So we're planning on setting up smaller areas, smaller projects, so that residents can start seeing the changes periodically as time goes by in their community, so that they continue to be engaged and they continue to be motivated by the fact that these items are currently moving forward and they can tangibly see that they're happening.
But and let me ask again, what would define a project?
Potentially
Are we talking about neighborhood improvements or?
Yes,
Okay.
potentially a beautification so go ahead, Kelly.
So each task force or subcommittee within the task force is looking at projects within their purview. So for example, the public safety subcommittee would really be looking at projects related to overall public safety in the community of Pajaro, such as a community emergency response plan, a community emergency response team, pre-planning evacuation routes. And some of those items are a bit quicker, they're more immediate, and some are more long-term. For instance, working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to provide community training on how to read a flood map is more of a short-term project, where a long-term project, an example of that would be the community emergency response plan that could take 1 to 2 years. Developing and equipping a community emergency response team and training residents to participate in a community emergency response team could take several years. So depending on the type of project, you could see anywhere from 6 months to 10 years. So the Housing Community Development subcommittee will be looking at areas related to development in the community, as well as private property mitigation efforts. The infrastructure task force could really be looking at things as simple as updating the welcome sign as you come into the community of Pajaro. That's a perfect example of a short-term project. It's feasible, doable, and it continues to improve the community. A long-term project for that group would be adding additional road infrastructure or a bus depot. So depending on the task force and the purview for which they're looking at the community of Pajaro, there are a variety of different projects depending on the timeline.
Thank you, Kel. I really appreciate you kind of giving an example of what these projects would be. I think a lot of people are wondering what could they be seeing? And I see Victor has his hand up again. Go ahead, Victor.
Yeah, just hopefully my final one. No, we'll see. But what are you folks looking for as far as who can fill these seats on the committee? Obviously, we have a variety of different types of language or mixed. We have Mixteco folks that speak Mixteco over there, Spanish and Pajaro too. Are they going to be going in and out of these areas too to kind of learn more from the community there too?
Yeah, so the people that we're asking to participate on the task force are residents of the community or business owners in the community and have a vested interest in the long-term resilience of the community, but also already have relationships in the community and awareness of the general community desires. And they're ultimately asked to think about their recommendations based on the needs of the whole community, not just their individual perspective, though those are valuable. We're asking them to take a step back and look at their community as a whole. And so the other participants, which will be local, state, and federal representatives, will also be engaging with not just the community members on the task force and the subcommittees, but also through our listening sessions and continued door-to-door engagement and one-on-one meetings with community members, depending on the topic or the community need.
Also, to complement that, we will be having, language services throughout the committee meetings. We will be providing interpretation from Spanish, Mixteco, and Zapoteco if necessary throughout the committee sessions.
Thank you both. Any other questions for Daniel or Kelsey?
Just for Daniel, can you make, I guess our Telemundo crew is also asking for that pitch to see if people are interested in joining committees or the committee, where they can get information to do that. And yeah.
Would you like me to do it in Spanish?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna switch to Spanish at this point. Bueno, pues para los hispanoparlantes que están escuchando este mensaje, el Condado de Monterrey está trabajando para desarrollar un plan a corto, mediano y largo plazo que quiere involucrar a los residentes y a los diferentes participantes que tienen voz en nuestra comunidad para que participen en esta planeación de recuperación para lo que es el pueblo de Pajaro. Entonces, estamos contactando a residentes que manifestaron su interés de participar en sesiones y en eventos de recuperación anteriormente a través de los diferentes eventos que hemos tenido. Y estamos también invitando a otros miembros de la comunidad a que se unan a este proceso. Estamos todavía desarrollando nuestro proceso de comunicación que vamos a tener con los residentes en general para comunicarles el progreso y el proceso que estamos llevando en estos comités que van a estar discutiendo proyectos a corto, mediano y largo plazo. Estaban explicando varios ejemplos de lo que significa tener planes a corto, mediano y largo plazo. Y la diferencia es, por ejemplo, qué planes se pueden desarrollar o qué proyectos se pueden desarrollar en un término corto, digamos, de 6 meses a 1 año. La diferencia sería de un proyecto a largo plazo que tardaría un poco más de tiempo en desarrollarse, como sabemos que hay los diferentes proyectos grandes que hay, como la infraestructura y todo eso, son proyectos que van un poquito más a largo plazo, pero ¿qué proyectos podemos buscar a corto plazo para que la comunidad vea el avance y vea el trabajo que se está haciendo dentro de su comunidad? Entonces, parte de este trabajo va a ser obtener la voz y las ideas de los residentes que fueron afectados y que son líderes en su comunidad por ser vocales y hablar sobre los problemas que están pasando. También estamos buscando la forma de incorporar la voz de los residentes. Actualmente estamos haciendo un sondeo en la comunidad de Pajaro, donde tenemos trabajadores de vida que han estado yendo casa a casa, haciendo una encuesta de necesidades principales con los residentes para saber cuáles son las prioridades que ellos tienen y qué es los problemas que siguen ocurriendo dentro de la comunidad. Entonces, queremos tener una vista bastante amplia del trabajo que se está haciendo y lo que vamos a hacer y qué se necesita para la comunidad. Entonces, eso es en parte del trabajo que hemos estado haciendo. Ahorita estamos trabajando en la composición de los diferentes comités que van a incluir personal del condado, personal de diferentes organizaciones sin fines de lucro que han estado trabajando en el área, y también lo más importante que nosotros vemos es los residentes, ¿verdad? Que sea una discusión que sea guiada por la voz de los residentes. Es lo más importante que nosotros queremos enfocarnos en este momento. Entonces, eso es lo que tengo ahorita para compartir. Vamos a estar dando actualizaciones mensualmente a la mesa de supervisores del condado de Monterrey sobre todo el trabajo que se esté desarrollando.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And Victor, I'm hoping that covered everything that you needed.
Unless something else comes up, yeah.
And then I see Leslie has her hand up. Leslie, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for taking my call and taking my question. So my question is, we're hearing about the community, excuse me, let me just send this right here. So how are you reaching people, and is there a database where people need to know about to sign up so they can be reached when these resources become available? Are you holding a town hall? If so, when will the next town hall event be? And if you're door knocking, how frequently are you door knocking, and what hours, what days?
Daniel, you might, I think Leslie joined a little bit late, so you might be able to recap just a few things and then answer the other questions that she had.
So to answer that question, I think with regards to the residents that we've been contacting at this point to participate in the committees, we've utilized the database that we have that we obtained from the different listening sessions that we had, where several residents signed themselves up. We requested each participant that came to these meetings to sign up a sheet if they wanted to be contacted in the future for further projects and potential work related to the recovery efforts. So we have a list of residents that we've been reaching out to from the business sector, from residents that lost their homes, that were impacted by the community, that were very vocal throughout the different listening sessions that we had in the county. So we've been utilizing that list to contact residents and to reach out, but we are also reaching out to our community-based partners, community-based organizations to participate and to share with us residents that they have been serving that they would feel would be adequate to be part of these discussion groups. With regards to the community as a whole, we are looking to develop a process in which we can communicate the progress that is being held through these committees as a whole to the community as a whole. So that is still, we're still working out what the best way to engage them would be. What I would like to say is that we are currently we're doing canvassing efforts in the different neighborhoods in Pajaro. These have been happening since last week, since early last week. VIDA crews and health department workers have been going every day to talk to residents, sharing information and taking their input as to what their priorities are. They're filling out surveys, they're asking them questions about the issues that they're still facing so that we can have a clear picture of the issues that they are still needing to work on so that we can bring those to the different committees that are currently being formed.
And Daniel, how often are those happening? Are those happening like on a specific day, on a specific time that people, because we're going to put out the story today that, you know, this is, you guys are gearing up forces to bring this committee forward. So is there a specific day on Tuesdays at 2:00 that you guys are going out?
No, for the surveys, they have been going out every day since last week, going out to the community and I think they're going block by block, meeting with residents. With regards to the community committee sessions, we have not started those yet. We are in the process of meeting with the residents that manifested their intent to participate, and we're also reaching out to the CBOs and the different county departments to get their participation in. So those, we're looking at the end of August, possibly beginning of September, to kick off the committee sessions.
Thank you so much. That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. The door-to-door canvassing is not to ask residents to participate in the steering committee. It's to gather input about their priorities and their needs, and basically to get an understanding of their vision for the community long-term. So I did want to be clear about what they were actually canvassing.
Thank you. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Daniel or Kelsey before we let them go?
No, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Daniel and Kelsey, very much for keeping us informed and filling us in. And now we're going to turn to the long patient supervisor, Glenn Church, who we asked him to be on today. Last week, there was a listening session regarding sheriff's oversight. And at that time, at the end of the meeting, a survey was launched to gather community questions and concerns beyond what was expressed at the meeting. That survey is still open, and we want to encourage people to take it. And then Supervisor Church, I'm hoping you might be able to talk a little bit about what you heard and what you're hearing from the community.
Sure, be glad to do that. I also just I'm going to backtrack just a little bit to the previous one in Pajaro, and that anybody who is wanting to be a part of this long-term recovery committee can also contact my office if that's easier than reaching out to the Department of Emergency Services. So would be happy. I've been involved in meeting with Daniel and Kelsey and the people in the community as well. So that would always be something where we're willing to assist people on direction. So let me, just what we've heard from, let me go a little bit on background on this whole bill and exactly what this commission or this committee, ad hoc committee with Supervisor Askew and I are really tasked with, because I'm realizing there's a little bit of confusion in there in the public too. But as most of you know, is AB 1185 is what is given the power to the Board of Supervisors to put together one of these committees to either have it as a commission of an oversight of the Sheriff's Department or either an Inspector General or both. And what we've been tasked with on this, Supervisor Askew and I, was basically just to look at options. We're not going to be making recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on this is the path that should be taken. We feel that's something the Board of Supervisors needs to do. But what we're going to do is try to get input from the community, which I've already been doing, and also get just explore the different options that are out there in other counties or what might be possible to do. I think what we've learned at this point is there's a lot of interest into this. The Sheriff's Department's the largest law enforcement agency in the county. It does coordinate with a lot of city police departments. I think the incident on May 31st where the shooting was in Salinas is a good example. It was the Sheriff's Department and the police department. They're both kind of were working together on dealing with that unfortunate situation. So from what we received in terms of emails and from last the last meeting we had, which was actually the first meeting, which was last week, is a whole range of ideas. But I think that the general gist is that people want to have some kind of local control into here. And right now there's a lot of federal and state oversight, and the Sheriff's Department, of course, has its own internal policies. But this is the opportunity for Monterey residents to be part of some involvement in how the Sheriff's Department operates, not just as a patrol agency or as an investigative agency, but also at the jail level as well. And I think at this point we're still really much in the beginning on this. We're wanting to kind of start to pin things down a little from the more general comments we had last week into something a little more specific.
And that's where the survey comes in, because the comments were pretty robust at the listening session. I think people kind of really started the ball rolling with what they were thinking, but not everyone could come to that meeting, and not everyone may, contact your office. They may not know, how to give their comments. So I'm hoping you would encourage people to take the survey and what that will mean to you by getting those results. How will that assist the ad hoc committee?
Yeah, any way we can get information is good. We're going to have more meetings, so that'll be helpful to get it this way. But this is a way for people who can't attend a meeting either on Zoom or in person. And so, really urge, it's a very simple survey. It's how many questions? 9 questions altogether, as it is a couple of demographic questions. And then it gets into, thank you, Matt, for putting this up. This is up it's right there in the front page of the county website. And it's in Spanish and English, both available. To go through and and answer these questions as we go through down here. You'll see questions at, I said about the demographics, where you may, the zip code where you may live, how somebody trusts or has faith in the sheriff's department, your view on whether or not we really need to go in the direction of having an oversight board or inspector general, whether, is there concern that this could be duplicative from what's being done at the state and federal level? But, again, I want to point out, this is going to be completely locally driven. So that is a unique feature of it, which there is not currently in place. And all this information that we gather from this is going to be all put together, and what we report back to the board about what the people in this county really want. And I think that's just really important, because this is something, again, it's an oversight commission. It's going to really be controlled by the residents of this county. And, we want to have your input into this, on whether, it should even be put up and just how it should be structured.
So I just wanted to add to this discussion, we're finding that it only takes about 2 minutes to take the survey. So it's not difficult. And there is a section at the end for comments that may not have been able to be given in the 9 questions that we had. We gave an opportunity for people to give their input on anything, none of the above. If none of the above, you were able to give your comment, there's a place where you can add that and, write your comments. We've had about over 80 responses. We'd like more. So I think, Supervisor, we're going to leave this up for another week and encourage people to participate.
Yes, that's right. Be up for another week. We'd really, urge, whatever folks in the media can do to get this out would be really helpful. Really like to have some responses that get up into the hundreds onto this. Again, we are going to have more community meetings on this, but the more information we can get, the more important it's going to be that we have the right thing set up here, the right I wouldn't say recommendations, because we're not really going to be doing that to the board, but the right options to the board of supervisors when we come back to them for this.
Any questions for Supervisor Church while we've got him here? It's a great opportunity. Seeing none, thank you. Thank you so much for being able to be on and talking about the survey and about what's ahead for the oversight topic. That will wrap up our news briefing for this week. Our next briefing is next week, and we'll see you then.